This is one cool thing about door to door. You grow some balls, right? So when you start pumping in sales, it brings a sense of confidence because you're fully in control. And you know if you're not performing, it's 100% your fault.
And I spent the first 2 years of my business 100% in person, across the kitchen table. I probably drove 200 to 300 miles a day, sold policies sitting on a milk crate in the middle of a hoarder's house. I've sold policies on the back of a tailgate.
People get lazy in every industry, even in solar. A lot of things are going virtual. And so our company right now is transitioning from selling door to door to selling virtually, buying leads, and then eventually running lead campaigns, marketing campaigns.
But you get better and more efficient. Now I'm at a point where every single one of my virtual appointments are 30 minutes. You switch to virtual. If you do one thing wrong, click, you're done. 99% of the time, my philosophy is if I don't make the sale today, I will never talk to you again.
You got to be sold on what you're selling. And when you're truly sold, you have that conviction, Jamie, like you don't feel bad putting a little pressure on. You should be closing. If you don't close, you're actually screwing them.
I think if you're going to make it in sales, I've heard the cliche, this percentage of sales are made in the 4th to 7th follow-up. I think that was made by a weak salesperson. I would rather the client hang up on me. I'd rather them tell me no 7 different ways because I'm getting stronger at overcoming objections.
You and I both know this. Every top salesperson in every industry, if there's one correlating theme, if their prospect does not buy from them, it's not the salesperson's loss, it's the prospect's loss. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Rainmakers podcast. Today we are hosting Jamie Chirio. What's up, Jamie?
What's going on, Nick? Nice to meet you, man.
Likewise. So Jamie is in the insurance sales space. You've been doing it for how long, man?
Just over 3 years.
Tell us a couple, like 2 top highlights from your career.
Man, okay. So I've sold a lot of things in the past, probably over a decade of selling. And I think one of the coolest things is selling something that you truly believe that the client actually needs. So life insurance, at the end of the day, somebody dies, you deliver a check to their family. When the family is like bawling their eyes out, crying, and you're handing them that check. And some families it's $1 million, some families it's $10,000. The impact is about the same.
I love that. That's awesome, man. Well, have you had? Okay, so how many deals have you sold?
So I have sold close to 1.5 million in commissions on my own pen in the last 3 years.
And how many families have you helped in with that?
A little over 2,000 personally. I have an agency that helps about 10,000 families a year.
Okay. And then how many, your personal sales, how many years at it?
3 years. So our company has a Hall of Fame, 400 families in a year helped. So I've been able to do our Hall of Fame every single year.
Well, thanks for joining us. Where are you joining us from?
Greenville, South Carolina. I spent most of my life in Michigan. Met my wife through a network marketing company, moved out to Oregon and lived the farm life for 3 years. And then last year we built a house out here in South Carolina.
What? Okay, dude, that's quite a move. Michigan to Oregon and then all the way out to South Carolina.
That's right.
How'd that work out? Where's your family at?
My family, between my wife and I, we have family in 4 different states: Oregon, Washington, Florida, and Michigan. So most of my family's in Michigan. Okay, so her family homesteaded a farm back on the Oregon Trail over 100 years ago. So we started our marriage in a 100-plus-year-old house on a 55-acre farm. And once we were ready, we decided to move to the South, where you can't beat the Southern hospitality and the family values.
Dude, and the weather, man. I was just out in Florida. It's so nice.
Mm-hmm.
I love Florida. Love it out there. I grew up in Oregon, actually, Jamie. I didn't tell you that.
I did not know that. Yeah, we were in Albany.
From 11 years old up until about 17 is when I left for college at BYU, Idaho.
Okay.
But, I don't miss Oregon that much, dude.
Yeah, I think one of the main reasons we moved out of there, other than the obvious, crazy stuff that's happened to the world over there, it rains like an extra 100 days a year there, dude, as opposed to over here, and that's depressing.
It is so depressing, man. The people that say it's not depressing are all on drugs. So
that's very fair.
Yeah. So, anyways, I love that. Yeah, I love sunny states, man. We'll see how much longer I can take it out here in Utah with all the snow. I do love Utah for a lot of reasons, and I got family out here. That's kind of my big draw. And then it's a great business area. We're up in Silicon Slopes, up in Lehigh, so a lot of tech companies. And
my background's in network marketing. I did network marketing for about 10 years, so I've spent plenty of time in Lehigh, going from company to company.
Yeah, man. If you're ever out here, you have to come visit. We podcast in person.
Love that.
I have to ask, how'd you pick, sorry, South Carolina over Florida? You got family in Florida. Why'd you pick South Carolina?
Man, house pricing for one. I mean, if you were to take our house and plant
Yeah.
it in Oregon or Florida, we would have never been able to afford it. So, I mean, that's obviously a big deal.
Yeah.
Medical freedom was a big deal. You know, we wanted to make sure that our kids kind of had choices on being able to participate in things without any things that they were forced to be able to have. And just in general, I mean, my wife and I during the pandemic, you know, we were going to a church. The church shut down. They weren't even having services anymore. We found this church online on YouTube and started watching it. And then we were just in a position where we said, we don't want to be in Oregon anymore. We don't necessarily want to go to Michigan, where my family's from. I loved South and North Carolina. We kind of had to choose between the two. South Carolina has a little bit more freedom and conservative values, so it was kind of a no-brainer for us. And then upstate South Carolina, Greenville, it's close to the mountains, so about as close to what we could find of the things we did like about Oregon, you know, kind of planting our flag in the South, you know, close enough to the mountains.
I love that, man. Okay, bro, let's dive into sales. I'm excited to geek out on this with you. You know, from a guy who's got a door-to-door background, talking to another guy who's got a, you know, you just closing lots of deals. And I want to geek out on the leads, especially, and you know, the differences in how we've gotten leads with our careers, and you know,
Totally.
finding the consistent theme behind the success and what we've done that's different. You know, different things to find our success. First of all, how much do you, for the listeners, followers, roughly how much do you make per year, or someone getting the sales volume that you get per year, what could they expect to make in life insurance?
I got involved in July of 21. My first 6 months in the business, I deposited 178. My second year in the business, building an agency and selling, I deposited 550, and last year about 900.
Dude, that's gnarly, and that's net.
That was my gross.
Gross, okay. How much is net
So
in that industry?
net in that industry, I'd say about, it depends because we've got leads, we pay for our own leads. And
Yeah.
then you've got obviously chargebacks, you know, 10 to 20% of everything that we write falls off the books.
Yep.
And I've got staff, you know, about 20 grand a month in staff. So my net's probably about 50%. Somebody who's just going to commit to the craft of just selling insurance and just buying leads, they don't have all the marketing expenses, I'd say their net could be closer to like 70.
Okay, that's really good. So first year total gross around 178K. Year two, you said around 550, and then about 900 some the year three.
Yes.
And then where do you guys projecting to do this next year?
Man, I mean, I'd love to be over a million, obviously. You know, one of the things that I obviously would love to talk about as well, because when you're building an agency, you know, it's one thing to, you know, learn how to sell. It's another thing to learn how to manage people. And in this business, you know, I've been in, you know, the sales team building type of organizations for a long time. And you have people come and you have people go. And it's a part of your leadership. And, you know, I had some people leave to go sell health insurance. That's a part of the business. And, you know, it took you know, I've learned some hard lessons from the things that those people said I wish would have been here. And, you know, now you have to go back to the drawing board and say, how can I make this opportunity better for agents who are joining us moving forward? So I think there's just a reality to this game as well, that people get the shiny object syndrome and say, you know, the grass is greener over there, and you got to learn how to improve. So I'd love to be over a million in terms of sales revenue as a business. You know, we did about, you know, 10 million last year in total overall commissions across the whole team. The insurance industry, we are judged based on our annual premium. So if Miss Mary spends $83 a month on an insurance product, that's about $1,000 a year. So that one client is going to net or gross the, you know, insurance carrier about $1,000. The commission's taken out of that, and you take the entire team's annual premium for the whole year, and we did about 10 million last year.
I love that. And then, so all your, like, what percent of your deals are from online leads, roughly? I know this is specific, but roughly what percent of your deals are online leads from the ads and marketing you guys do? Or do you guys do the ads yourself, or do you just buy the leads?
So we, our company, we have a lead center in which we can buy brand new or aged internet leads, social media leads, or direct mail leads. So this is somebody who went on Google and typed in life insurance quote, somebody who was scrolling through Facebook and they saw an ad that made sense to them, similar to like a billboard driving down the road, and then direct mail, which is always super interesting to me because I know that if something came into my mailbox and you said, I want you, you know, Nick, fill this out by hand and then go put it back in your mailbox and flip up the flag on your mailbox and then send it back in. I've never done anything like that in my entire
I
life.
ain't doing it.
You're
Yeah.
not doing it either.
But
But when that lead comes in, it's our most expensive lead. It's almost $100. So I say if someone's willing to go flip up the flag in their mailbox, they really want to talk.
yeah, I like that. Okay, so what percent of your deals or leads are referrals or just meetings?
Man, probably less than 5%.
Okay, that sounds right.
And I would say
And
that our
then
industry, we're so spoiled with leads that that's something that we could learn from so many of these other industries who do go out and create cold traffic and turn it into warm traffic. Everything that we have are people raising
yeah,
their hands. So in the insurance industry, we get lazy and we say, I can just throw more money at it, which that can mess with someone's return on investment and their profitability if they say, I don't want to ask for referrals. I don't want to do the work to build more trust with a client, to get their sister and their neighbor. I'll just buy more leads. And it's a good thing and a bad thing because I can control how much money I make. But if I was willing to go that much further above and beyond, I might take the $1,000 I spent and turn it into $10,000 as opposed to the $5,000.
dude, it's a phenomenal thing if you have massive discipline with your money and with your goals and know what you're doing with your time as a salesperson, right? And so I totally agree. People get lazy in every industry, even in solar. A lot of things are going virtual, and so our company right now is transitioning from selling door to door, which we're still doing, into selling virtually, buying leads, and then eventually running lead campaigns, marketing campaigns in house. And that's kind of our transitionary phase. We're working with a couple companies that are coaching us on social media and ads and marketing and but for now, we just let them do it, and then 6 months in, we have a goal to do everything in house. But dude, it's crazy how this is one cool thing about door to door is you grow some balls, right? It sucks, but you grow some balls, and so when you start pumping in sales that are from your own leads, it brings a sense of confidence because you're fully in control. And if you're not performing, it's 100% your fault, which I would argue that's the way for both, whether you're buying leads, or you're cold calling and generating your own leads. Either way, it's 100% on you. Would you agree
Yeah,
with that,
I mean,
Jamie?
I would totally agree. And I spent the first 2 years of my business 100% in person across the kitchen table. I probably drove 200 to 300 miles a day in my car going and doing insurance appointments right in someone's house. I mean, I've sold policies sitting on a milk crate in the middle of a hoarder's house. I've sold policies on the back of a tailgate. I've sold policies in multi-million-dollar homes and in shacks in the middle of the woods. So I feel like I have lived some of that door-to-door lifestyle. The difference being I, didn't go, into a neighborhood to canvas, but there, if I have a stack of leads that are in the same area and I couldn't get a hold of them, but I have the inquiry that they filled out, show up to their house and knock and say, hey, Nick, my name's Jamie. I'm the underwriter who's been assigned to your case. Do you not answer your phone when you see phone numbers that you don't recognize? Yeah, I never do. Okay, great. Hey, I'm just the underwriter who's been assigned. It'll take 5 or 10 minutes and still put my foot in the door and get into the kitchen table. So there are some similarities in what we do. The difference being we're able to reference something, whether it's an online form or a physical piece of paper that they did fill out. And whether they were just looking for a quote or they were ready to buy, there was some level of intent that we can then use to obviously book that appointment.
I love that, Jamie. Okay, so what of these of all your guys' deals, what percent of them are you guys closing or trying to close in person or virtual?
So like I said, the first 2 years I did 100% in person because we told people they literally were not allowed to do virtual. We thought that our persistency would go down like crazy. Already, like I said, 20% of the deals that you sell in person or really in any medium are going to fall off the books, and we get chargeback negative commission, and then obviously new commission will obviously bring you out of that hole. I'm 100% virtual. My agents are 100% virtual, and it was one day when I looked at our leaderboard, and I was one of the last people. I'm leading the team, and I look at our top 25, and 23 of the 25 were 100% virtual. And me and one other person were the only ones who were still going into the home. And then we finally had enough data because now we've had, 18 months or so where our company's been going virtual and been able to see the persistency hasn't really changed. The, amount of, clients that fall off the books is actually about the same. And it's because the way the world changed and you saw, personal training somehow happen on Zoom. You saw, telemedicine, start to happen over the phone and on Zoom. So why would you not buy insurance? And I'm sure you're going to be selling solar over Zoom. It doesn't really
Oh yeah.
surprise me at all.
Yeah, it's going that way a lot. We see it's trending towards the top earners are consistently making more and more virtually. And I think part of it is, it's not that you're getting an advantage over virtual, with each prospect, but your advantage isn't, there. It's volume, and it's your time, right? Visiting and traveling to homes, you're usually going to hit 6 to 8 a day max, max. I mean, that's crazy still. Most guys are doing 4 to 6.
Yep.
And when you do virtual, you can cram in 8 to 12 if you know
Yeah.
how to run your schedule and you pre-set up appointments right. Do you guys
When I
do a
was a brand new
one-touch close?
agent,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry. When I was a brand new agent, my first appointment took me close to 2.5 hours to finish because I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never been through an insurance application. Of course, my login didn't work. I had to call customer service. Like all the things happened. And then over time, you start to get better and more efficient. And like you said, if I was doing 7 appointments in a day, you also got to imagine I was doing sometimes 5 or 6 different counties in a day. I wasn't just, going around one area, one county. I would maybe go 5 or 6 counties in a day to have these 7 appointments. And it would take me from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every single time that I went out in the field. Now, as time has progressed, when I was in the field, I went from a 2-hour appointment down to a 45-minute appointment. The first time that I had to write a husband an application, the wife, and the kid, that's 3 applications in one house. Again, it took me 2.5 hours. But you get better and more efficient. Now I'm at a point where every single one of my virtual appointments are 30 minutes. So now I go 30 minutes every 30 minutes. And I mean, I have days where I have 14 to 18 appointments where as opposed to, I could only run maybe 30 appointments a week in person. But now the catch 22 is that over the phone, the rapport is less. I have to do more to increase my credibility to get them to trust me. They're going to be giving me their social security number, their banking info, their driver's license, all the things. So the things that we've had to put in place to make sure that credibility is there so they don't just hang up, because you can't hang up on me if I'm sitting across the kitchen table from you. I could mess up and do all kinds of, mistakes that new agents have, and they'll still listen to you and at least give you a no at the end. When you switch to virtual, if you do one thing wrong, click, you're done, and there's no reason that they're going to answer the phone for you again.
Amen, dude. Okay, so what things are you guys doing, Jamie, to help build a rapport so you don't lose the deal from going from selling in person to virtually?
Absolutely. So one of the first things that was really important when I would go into the home is, we'd all carry around a physical copy of our state insurance license. We'd have a name tag with our state insurance license on it. And one of the easiest things we did is I'd throw my license down in front of them with the piece of paper that they filled out and say, hey, I'd like for you to take a picture of that. Here's my driver's license, just so you can verify, that I am who I say I am, all the scammers going on. This is for you. And as soon as we went virtual, it got a little bit harder because it was like, hey, I'm texting you a picture. And they're like, who are you? So one of the things that we did is we bought a domain called verifymyunderwriter.com, and we made it look super legit. So now it's like this verified underwriter profile that has every single one of your state licenses. It's got, reviews from clients. It's got your national producer number, which is like your social security number for insurance. And before I was even willing to talk to a client, it's like, hey, did you get the text message when we set the appointment with the Verify My Underwriter website? Yes. Did you click on it? No. Hey, I'm actually required that you click on that and verify that I am who I say I am before we can even start. And
Nice.
obviously, that's a rule that we set. But one of the main things that we really do a lot in insurance is we use the word they a lot. It's like, hey, they just make me come out to make sure that you're not like 600 pounds or strapped down to a bed full time. Hey, they just make me come out to make sure, this, and this. Hey, because they have a boss. They understand they.
Yeah.
So when I use, hey, they just make me have you verify me before we can continue. It's a big deal. And just, we always say increase credibility, reduce sales pressure. Increase credibility, reduce sales pressure.
That's gold, dude. Using they is a non-aggressive way to help build credibility. It makes you seem more established, right? And that you're talking to somebody from a larger organization. If you run a small sales team and say, "Hey, they make me do this to when I talk to you to make sure we verify who I am and know who you're talking to." I think that's huge, Jamie. Okay, so when coming back to your deals, do you guys do a one-touch close for the majority, or are you doing like a 2-touch appointment, 3-touch? How do you do that?
So 99% of the time, my philosophy is if I don't make the sale today, I will never talk to you again. Now, I think that it's been a little short-sighted because there are 100% deals in which the follow-up is necessary. However, again, we're so spoiled with leads that I'm like, next, 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 next. So for the longest, I remember I went to my first appointment, and this was so important to me. I go to my first appointment and I call up my mentor and I say, hey, Grady, they said that I was a really good guy. They really liked me. And they said they think about it. And he was like, they said they think about it. I was like, yeah. He goes, but they said they'll definitely call me back on Monday. And he goes, Jamie, I just want to stop you here for a second. You will never hear from them again. And it was just like, it was kind of a slap in the face, but it was also reality, because now I've been doing this for 3 years. I've sat in well over 3,000 homes, not including the thousands of virtual appointments that I've done. And I can probably count on one hand the amount of people who have ever called me back. It's always me calling them. Any of the follow-up appointments that I've gotten, it's me following up with them. So we have some systems that we've put in place through software where, we've got our CRM, and if somebody does go to think about it, you drag that lead into think about it, and now automation is going to take over to get them back on your schedule. We've got a 48-hour think about it campaign, and the person who's like, hit me back up in a year. And in the past, when they're like, hit me up in a year, that person was dead to me. I will never talk to you again. I'll take the piece of paper, I'd crumple it up, and I'd throw it in the trash. And I'm like, you want to talk to me in a year? Like, there's zero chance. But I realized how short-sighted that was, because I can put them into a system where the computer will follow up on my behalf. And even if I pull 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 out of those out of 100, that's still a couple deals that I would have not pulled out that I could, because there's no way that I'm going to go back and call every single person who ever told me they're going to think about it when someone else is waiting. I think it's more of, it needs to be a mindset. Like, I think if you're going to make it in sales, I've heard the cliche, this percentage of sales are made in the 4th to 7th follow-up. And I think that may or may not be true. But at the same time, I think that was made by a weak salesperson. And there are people out there where, again, if you are afraid to push, if you are like, I would rather the client hang up on me. I'd rather them tell me no 7 different ways, because I'm getting stronger at overcoming objections. Because again, like, when you actually know that what you're selling is helping somebody, then at the end of the day, you don't feel like you are twisting their arm. You feel like you're helping them make a good decision for their family. And when I kind of look at it this way, of all of the deals that I've lost because I pushed too hard, if there was that one person who needed me to push a little bit harder, and then because I pushed a little bit harder, they got the life insurance, and then their husband died, and then they got $1 million, it was 100% worth it. That family who said they needed to think about it, but I said, hey, Bob and Mary, just like you need to think about it, the insurance company needs to think about you. So we're going to go ahead and submit a request for coverage right now. You take control. That's the biggest thing, is people want to be led. They want to be guided. They want to be directed. And they want to know that somebody who's going to be helping them make a good financial decision for their family, they can be trusted to be a leader.
I love that, dude. So you mentioned a lot of things that I really align with. And there are some things that I disagree with, not with the philosophy, but with as far as like a one-touch close or, attempts to close. But the big philosophy here I agree with is basically you got to be sold on what you're selling. And when you're truly sold, you have that conviction, Jamie, you don't feel bad putting a little pressure on, right? Like, you should be closing. If you don't close, you're actually screwing them. And dude, you and I both know this. Every top salesperson in every industry, if there's one correlating theme, right, it is the fact that they feel like if their prospect does not buy from them, it's not the salesperson's loss, it's the prospect's loss. And they feel obligated to serve them. And their way they serve them is by making the commission, is by getting the deal. But the thing is tell me if you think the same way. My focus is never on the commission. And it's because guys like you and I, we make enough money, we don't have to worry about the commission, so we can focus more on the prospect, we can ask better questions. And dude, the other thing that coincides with this is if they're not interested, or if it's actually not a good fit, we're like, no problem. Have a good day. I've got another appointment I got to jump to. And so you hit another golden nugget there. Okay. It was talking about how, we're not worried about it because we got an influx of leads. And so, it's no surprise you telling me before the podcast that that's kind of one of the business ventures you might be doing next is selling leads. It's so important. If you have a hot pipeline of new prospects that can come rolling in, you're never afraid to tell your prospects no, let alone them tell you no.
100%. Commission breath is stinky, and you can even smell it over the phone and through Zoom. You don't have to be sitting across the kitchen table. And when you're selling out of desperation, people feel it. And I've had many a times in my career where I remember calling up my my first mentor in insurance. And I was like, man, I went 1 for 28 this week. And he's like, dude, what happened? Last week you went like 20 for 22. Like, how does that happen? And he's like, did you get worse at selling insurance? I'm like, yeah, I did. And he's like, no, you did not get worse at selling insurance, but there's something that you're doing consciously or subconsciously that's making the client uncomfortable. There's something that you're doing. And whether it is you do have that thing in the back of your mind, like rent's due, the car payment's due, I got to pay my staff this week and it's a little bit tighter. I woke up this morning and got a charge back. So you're pushing a little bit harder at the wrong time. Like that type of stuff, like the clients do feel. So I think that I've heard from so many top producers, they say what you said a few minutes ago of when you're not focusing on the commission, when you're focusing on the person. But that is so much easier said than done. Because when you're brand new and you're coming into sales, a lot of times you are broke. Like I was broke when I got into sales. You know, I owed the IRS $50,000. I was coming out of a nasty bankruptcy. I needed money. Like I needed to make sure I could replace my wife's income so she could stop teaching. Like all of the things, I needed money. And it wasn't for a while where I truly got to the point where I felt like I was focusing on the client rather than myself. So, you know, it's kind of a hard, you know, it's kind of like paradoxical a little bit because it's like, oh, focus on the client versus focusing on the money, but I really need the money. And how do you, let me ask you that question. Like, how do you take, you know, yourself, if you're someone who needs money, how do you focus on the client? Like, how do you do that from a heart space?
It's a great question. So Jamie, this started for me actually at a younger age. You know the Mormon missionaries?
Oh yeah.
Okay, dude. So I used to be one. That's where I learned how to sell. And obviously you're not making money doing that. You pay to be out there, right? I was in Brazil speaking a different language. And when you're out there trying to help people quit addictions to smoking and find Christ, right, and just live a better lifestyle, you come from a very selfless state. Like everything about it selfless. And when you baptize or convert somebody, you don't make a commission, right? It's just joy for another person of them living a better life. And that's where a lot of my training has stemmed from. And I think a lot of the success is because I start selling from a selfless point of view. And before I go into a sales appointment, I usually, whether it's a quick prayer or a thought of like, hey, I need to focus on this person and what the value is for them. And I visualize, okay, I actively visualize the benefit of whatever I'm giving to them. And so for life insurance, for example, you know, as unfortunate as the event and circumstance of somebody dying, visualizing the family that you're talking to, and heaven forbid that awful situation happens, but instead of visualizing the funeral, you're seeing them getting the check in the mail, and just being able to visualize both worst case and best case if they buy my product. You know, if they didn't buy my product versus if they did. And so I think the more I visualize that and actually in my own head before I even go into a meeting, I can present that and they can kind of capture that vision themselves. That's kind of the best grounds for sales. I mean, if you have two things, right? If you have charity, just desire to serve people, right? You don't have to be a Christian dude. Like you could be an absolute atheist. You could hate God. You can't hate people. You got to love people to do well in sales. But if you have charity, love to serve people, and then you have a good product that you believe in, and then coupled with, three things: massive work ethic, talking to tons of people, it is guaranteed you'll find success with the right amount of time, right? You can't go in for a week or a couple of days or even a month in some industries and say, oh crap, I'm not doing well. I'm not cut out for this, you know? And dude, how do you feel when people tell you, Jamie, hey, I'm not cut out for sales. I can't push people enough.
I agree with them. I just 100% agree with them. And I say, you're right. You absolutely are not cut out for sales. So, and I say that I'm being playful here because there really are people where you see more in them than they see in themselves. And I've had, guys and girls who've come from backgrounds that had absolutely no sales experience whatsoever. Guys who've come from strictly blue collar backgrounds that ended up being some of our top salespeople. Girls who came from, being a teacher or being a nurse. And obviously there's still a care for people there, but learning a skill set. So one of the things for me that I'm, a lot of the times looking for is, I think anybody can learn the skill set of selling. It's the mindset part that either you already have to have, or you have to understand that you're going to have to go through probably a hard year to develop that. And it's like, hey, if you haven't been in sales before, then this idea of like the law of averages where I need to go and knock on 100 doors and, most of them are going to tell me no, but if I do it, I'm going to get better and I'll close one. Like when you start like having, you get through 10 doors and all 10 tell you no, but you don't have the wisdom to zoom out and say, but what if I knock on 100 and maybe the 20 doors that I do close come somewhere in the middle, but I quit too early. And it's like someone who's been in sales before, they go, I just need to zoom out a little bit, perspective. I haven't run the activity enough. And like you already have the mindset around like I've chosen sales as my career. All I have to do is learn the words, the word tracks, the skill sets, believe in my product, become a little more educated. If I have that and I put in the activity, there's no difference between me and Nick or me and anybody else. But someone who comes into the business without the mindset, they've never done anything like it before, you can learn it, but it's going to be the same school of hard knocks that every other person who has the mindset went through to get it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. How much of you think that mindset is developed from doing the sales job and is developed from just life circumstances of, going through difficult things and having a refined, character of a human being that jumped into selling something that,
I mean, I think it can be all.
both?
I think it can be all of it. I think it could be that in a million different combinations.
Agreed.
Whether it's, the circumstances of your life and like this is the place that you're finally being, seen and recognized for the first time and you're just, craving that and seeking it and trying to become the best that you can possibly be, or you're the person who actually has, found success in a lot of different places very easily in your life. And then you come into this specific sales industry, mine or yours, and you get your butt kicked. And then now your ego is very bruised and you have to like kind of have a little bit of an ego death. And that's your adversity, and now it's like, okay, I have to overcome sucking at something and I'm normally really good at everything, but somehow I'm not good at this. And I need to forget everything that I learned and then be humble and then learn this skill set from somebody else in a new way to get good at it. So I think that it could come in a lot of different ways.
A lot of the success from my experience of seeing salespeople is, finding them because of the back history and the life experiences they've gone through. And a lot of it is related to pain from my experience, Jamie. If they've done hard things and they've been through hard stuff, because think of it, what's one of the top reasons that salespeople quit or, can't stand their job? It's failure. It's rejection and it's anxiety, all the things about it. And so if they've done hard things, in comparison and perspective to the sales job and getting rejected 100 times, maybe their father died to cancer, or maybe they went through a divorce or they were abused as a child. Those things they don't have to run from. If you bring those up, those can actually be your superpower, whether you're in sales or entrepreneur, anything that can empower you because it gives perspective to the hardship. And for a salesperson, that rejection, that seems so little, so minuscule. And when others complain about how hard the job is, you're like, dude, you're all a bunch of pussies,
100%. I mean, I had a pretty good childhood, but I'm a child of multiple divorces. My wife and I, between the two of us, we have, eight parents, 7 now, her dad passed away, but eight parents in 4 different states on the average of their third marriage, so I've seen that. I've lived that. My wife lived in, close to 12 different, households growing up. And, I also been through, finding success and losing it, which is a whole nother level of adversity. When I was 18, 19 years old, I built a team in network marketing of over 10,000 people, here in the US and internationally. And then in 2015, the company got shut down and our paychecks were shut off. All the company paid for cars. No one could pay for them anymore because we lost our paychecks and had to learn how to pivot for the first time. And, trying to start something new, losing half your sales team in the process. And, I could tell you a bunch of different bullet points on that journey, but it led me to being over leveraged. I earned a bunch of money, never saved anything. And I owed a bunch of money to the IRS. 2017, after years and years and years of kind of silently, trying to be the guy on Instagram, but like suffering behind the scenes, I had to file bankruptcy to get out of it. I had to get all my stuff taken from me in front of my friends and family. And then it was like back to rock bottom. And then it's like, okay, what are you going to do now? And I almost settled. My wife was a teacher and she made really good money in Oregon, Pacific Northwest teachers, they make good money. She's making like 60 grand a year. And I was like, okay, I'll get a job. And I ended up getting a job in the insurance industry. So I was a staff member in Family First Life. And we put our salaries together. We were making 100 grand. And I was like, okay, I could do this. Maybe I'll give up on my dreams of, being an entrepreneur, after I went through all that. I'll become a house husband, like I made my wife's lunch, I did the dishes, I mowed the lawn, I did all the things. And, at some point maybe we'll have a kid, but then we'll get, and I'll stay home, but I never had that picture in my mind growing up. But I started to think maybe this is what life could be like. And I'm okay with that because I got my butt kicked in sales and entrepreneurship. I built a 7-figure digital marketing agency during that same time and dealt with embezzlement from a partner, and had to shut the company down. So it was like I felt like I couldn't win. And
Yeah.
I settled and I said, okay, we make 100 grand a year together. And then the pandemic hit. And guess what happened? Everyone went virtual, and they said to my wife, you're the new teacher at this school, even though you've been teaching for 7 years. You're the one who's on the chopping block because we're going virtual and we don't know how many people are coming back. So now we lose our main source of income. And then my original mentor is like, dude, you don't have a choice. Like, I'm your friend. I've known you for 10 years. It's time to get your insurance license. It's time to go back in the trenches. And I was like, man, I don't want to go out and do the work again. I feel like I did the work, 8-10 years ago when I was first getting started. That's when I was in the trenches. I don't know if I even know how to work that hard again. And so I had to really humble myself and like start at ground zero at the bottom of a new industry that I had no experience in whatsoever. But it was one of the best things that I ever did for myself because it gave me my confidence back and it allowed me to say, I'm going to be the provider for my family. That's it, period.
I love that, Jamie. Dude, I resonate with so much of what you just said, dude. That's amazing. I love the story. Dude, everybody has, we all go through stuff in life and we all have a choice that we have to make of, the victim or victor mindset. And for me, I'm a 30-year-old, dad of 3, divorced dad. And my name was defamed for a long time after my divorce. I lost almost all my friends, all my close friends. And that was so painful. Sold my pest control company, and I lost pretty much all the equity. Sold all my real estate, and so a lot of my net worth, a lot of my assets, all gone. And I had to hit the reset button. And think of all the excuses that you could give yourself. And I did for a couple months. I did. I sat on my ass and just threw the biggest pity party. But dude, there's something that clicks. There's a moment when you feel empowered. And I think sometimes it's a gift from God. In my personal opinion, it usually comes through other people showing up in your life. Where you're like, okay, I can do this. I can bounce back, And now all the pain is converted into a story, dude. And, rather than running from it, it's something that I actively think about, and it fuels me. And it gives me grounds to not compare myself, but to level with people and say, I'm not so great. No matter what level of success I reach, that was always part of my past, and it's part of me, and it makes me who I am. And so anyways, dude, a lot of the top reps that I've interviewed, even in the door-to-door space, especially, a lot of them have gone through, either traumatizing things or hard pasts, whether it's addiction or hard life things, just life events. But the difference is everybody goes through hard things, right, Jamie? But it's the ones that chose to rise from it.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't
So
agree more, man. That's amazing.
I love it, dude. So talk to us about. I want to talk to you about this closing on the first visit, because I used to be the same way. Okay, and this is not me trying to cause confrontation anyway. I just think it's interesting to debate the topic. So in solar especially, you got so many competitors out there, and we know that, hey, if they don't pull the trigger, it's likely they won't pull the trigger at all. But there's a lot of deals where if you set the stage, okay, if you don't close the deal on your first pitch, if it was pitched and presented to close on a first deal, you're right, you will not get it. But if the framework is laid early on of a two-touch, and here's how I do this. I gauge the meeting with my client within the first couple minutes by asking questions and just seeing their time frame, what they're looking for, right? And this varies from industry to industry, right? But and then if they're absolute like, hey, for XYZ reason, I cannot make this decision today. For some of them, I'll call it out. That's BS. But for a lot of them, if it's valid, rather than trying to counteract that or argue or overcome, I roll with that and say, hey, this is actually part of the framework. This is part of how you do business. This first visit, I'm not here to sell anything. I'm just here to even see if you even qualify, right? You could tell me, hey, we want to do this, Nick, but I say, hey, I don't even know if it's a fit, my man. Like, I got to make sure your home's qualified, your credit, finances. I don't know if it's even good for you to get involved with this. So that's what I'm meeting with you here today for. And so, dude, this approach right here has actually led to an insanely high retention rate for my sales. One of the highest I've seen in the industry, about like 96%. And then on top of that, it's my close rate has actually been very high, but also referrals come from it too. Now, I'm not saying that's the only way you have to do it, but I've kind of discovered this through accident, Jamie.
No, I totally understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it can vary from industry to industry. And I think the nature in which the lead was
Agreed.
generated really plays a big factor into it, because I look at it as the
That's a good
client has
point.
already said yes when they filled out the lead form saying they were looking for life insurance. Whereas you go and you knock on someone's door, they're like, who is it? And you're like, and I don't know your pitch, and I don't want to
Yeah.
do you a disservice by butchering it. But at the end of the day, you guys are and I have so much respect for someone in door to door, because you take someone from not interested to interested. And I believe that if you were to pick up the phone and open up the phone book, which is illegal, by the way, don't do that. Don't call people in the phone book for insurance if they didn't request it. But I believe that with the skill set that you have, you could take someone from not interested to interested, and you could sell some insurance over the phone if you wanted to. But the nature of what's happening is someone's filling out a request looking for insurance. So our two touch is our appointment setting system. So when I get on the phone, it's, hey, Nick, what's going on? This is Jamie. I'm just getting back with you. You sent that request into my office looking for more information on the life insurance here for Lynn County. I'm just the underwriter who's been assigned to your case. Hey, it's like a 10 or 15 minute phone call to see if you can even qualify. Real quick, most people who fill these out, they fill it out because they want to make sure if they pass away, they leave some money behind for their loved ones, take care of their final expenses, pay off a mortgage. Is that what you were looking for, or something different?
Nice.
And if
Yeah.
someone
And if
says
they say,
that's what I was looking for, I'm in.
yeah.
They've already
What
said
if they
yes.
say no?
If they say no, okay, well, what were you looking for? And now that's where the objection overcoming comes in. But if I get that first yes, and I'm able to book the appointment, let's just say I'm going to their home. I look at it this way. They answered the phone to a number they didn't recognize. They said yes to somebody, that's why I filled it out. Then I said, hey, I'm going to be in the neighborhood on Friday and Saturday, and I've got, a 2:30 or a 3:30. Which one do you want? And they said 3:30. And then I show up to their door, and they let me in the front door. They've now said yes 4 times before I even sit down at the table. And then when I sit down at the table, I say, hey, here's who I am. Here's what we're going to do today. And I walk them through the process. It's like, hey, this is who I am. Here's the companies that I work with. We need to submit a request for coverage to the insurance company to see if you can qualify. Does that make sense? Should we proceed? Yes. They've now said yes 5, 6 times. And the only reason that somebody says no after that is because either we made them feel uncomfortable by pushing too hard, or we made something that was out of their budget. Those in our business, it's very simple. Either I made you untrusting and uncomfortable, or I showed you way too big of a number that didn't fit inside of your budget. I wasn't solution oriented enough. So for me, I feel like if all of those yeses are there's no reason why somebody should say no the first time that I sit down with them.
I like that. That's a really good perspective, man. I love that. Yeah, that's good justification for what you're doing in your industry, especially, and how you guys are getting the leads, how they're saying yes, and you're qualifying the buyer, and it's an absolute win-win to go in and actually close the deal there. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, because we don't have like a fancy education process on life insurance, because our product is very simple. Hey, Bob, if you die, it pays out. They're like, yeah, that's what I want. Whereas you guys are like, hey, let me share with you the energy saving costs here and here. Like there's not much education on our side. It's like you wanted the one where if you die, it pays out, right? Yes. Okay, great. And how much can you spend? 75. Oh, here's a plan for 60. Let's go. And it's like there's just not. If it's when people make it weird and they try to do the fancy presentation, that's where the client feels more uncomfortable on our side. So we position ourselves not as the salesperson. I position myself as the underwriter, which has so much power in our business. I'm here just to help you find
Oh
something that
yeah.
makes sense and help you get approved. I'm on your side. Even when I sit down at the home, I never am across the table. I'm always either on the same side of the table
Yep.
or on I'm sitting at the head of the table and they're next to me because I can almost like metaphorically wrap my arm around them and we're on the same team.
Yep.
It's me and you versus the insurance
Yep.
company. It's not you versus me.
Dude, that's a huge foundation right there. That's gold. I'm the exact same way. There's psychology about that, the confrontation of sitting across from somebody, and you want to sit side by side. That's money. But also, oh, dude, what I was gonna go down a tangent with you. Dang it, Jamie. Hold on, it'll come back to me. Dude, so tell me with the top objections, okay? I'm changing gears a little bit, but top objections that lose the sale for you guys, typically, or just anybody in your industry, where are you guys losing the sale?
I think the easiest place that someone loses the sale is somebody doesn't want to give them their personal information over the phone. I don't give my
Okay.
social to anybody. I don't give my bank account info to anybody. I think that's probably
Right.
one of the top ones. I need to think about it. I need to talk to my spouse. I need to talk to my
Okay.
kids. But I would say
So
number
how
one, we can go through each one if you want to.
and how, yeah, what's your go-to way to, do you preempt the objections? Do you just resolve it when it comes up? Do you do a little bit of both?
So this is fun because so last Thursday we did a sales conference in Charlotte, and I brought up like our top 7 sales guys in the room, and I'm like, we're going to do an overcoming objections panel, and this happens every single time. Somebody gets up there and they go, "Well, I don't really get objections anymore because I do such a good job setting the table," and I'm like, "That's
Yes.
true, but I'm not going to let you get away with that because there's a bunch of
Yeah.
people in this room that are not good at setting the table yet." Who don't have the same confidence that you do, where you overcome everything up front. So I still
Dude.
need the word tracks from you right now because there's someone in
Yeah.
the audience who needs that because they're going to end up at the end of the sale having to think about it. Whereas I know you haven't heard think about it in a year because you've been doing this so long, and that's definitely the goal. So I think like the way that I'll preempt this is when you get really, really good at setting the table, overcoming all the objections up front, setting the credibility in front of them,
Yep.
explaining the process, all of that, there won't be objections at the end because you did a good
That's
job
it.
hitting all of that on the front end before you even showed a price, before you even created a transaction, and that is
Yep.
the key in the long run. But at the same time, I think it is still it's lazy, top producer or manager who goes, "Well, I don't get that objection anymore. Sorry, I can't help." And it's like the
Yeah.
new person's trying to learn. So like, no, let's
Yeah.
go through it. Like what happened? Like, but what if they did say, I don't give my social to anybody? What if they did say, I
Right.
need to talk to my spouse? Well, so I think that's important to make sure I start
Oh,
with.
dude, that's gold. Yeah, you absolutely have to know how to respond to the objections. Not necessarily for the to overcome them and get the deal, but mostly to be sold. Because if you're sold on it and you understand all the concerns and how to resolve them, you bring them up at the beginning of the sales presentation, and that is the secret. Because when they come up at the end, your back is up against the wall. And if you overcome the objection, you're basically saying after every time you overcome an objection, after every response, basically what they hear is your response. Then right after they hear, I'm just saying that last point because I'm trying to close and sign on the dotted line right here. That's what they hear. But when you bring it up early on and you preempt it, and there's different ways to preempt objections in every industry. There's good, better, best. And some of the best ways is through telling stories and asking questions, right? But dude, that's the big thing I've seen between top producers. And there's so many things that we could geek out on with this, Jamie. I think a lot of it is comes down to the confidence of the salesperson about the product. And the extremely confident and very sold salespeople bring them all up front because they have nothing to hide. I literally tell my prospects, I'm like, dude, I don't need to sell you jack, buddy. Like, if I walk out of here, you're on the hook for about 80 grand. If I help you get approved, I get that number down to 40 grand or less. You choose. I actually will say that to guys that are kind of
Yeah,
being really bold with me. I'll be bold back and I just lay down the hammer. But
100%.
yeah. So what kinds of things do you guys do to preempt objections and bring up all the ugly up front? Well, like what's the
Yeah.
go-to thing that you do?
So this is There's two different philosophies in my industry. Letting the person know up front that you're going to need their social, their driver's license, and their bank account info up front to submit a request for coverage. So, hey, Bob, Mary, just so you know, as we kind of laid out this whole process, there's going to be three important pieces of information that we're going to need to obviously, continue to submit the request for coverage. Number one, at some point, we are going to need your social security number. This is so that we can verify that you are who you say you are, because Bob, Mary, there's fraud that happens, insurance fraud. I got to make sure you are who you say you are. We're running your background, your medical history. This is how they verify you in the system. Number one. Number two, your driver's license, so they can make sure there's not any DUIs, reckless driving. You're not running from the cops, are you? No? Okay, great. And then, of course, your bank account, because number one, they need to make sure that if you get approved, you can pay for it. And they also need to make sure that the name on the application matches the name on the bank account, because you can't pay for insurance for somebody else. We got to make sure there's no fraud being committed. Is that all okay? And, however, the closing sentence, everyone has a different sentence. I personally, I know I just gave you that. I don't do any of that. I tell them what the process is going to be. And when I get into the application, I'm more of a, don't make it a big deal. This is the next question on the application. And when somebody goes, why do you need that? I almost like raise an eyebrow at them. Like it's like, I'm not trying to make them feel stupid, but they're like, so why do you need my bank account? It's like, why do you need my bank account information? And then a rookie salesperson is going to give them a very long, drawn out explanation. And I'll look down at my paper and I'll go, so you can pay for it. And then look back down at my paper and they're like, oh, okay.
Yep.
So I can pay for it. That's why
their concern is as big as you make it, not the customer, you.
So one thing I'll also say is that when new agents hear objections, especially if they've trained in an office or virtual Zoom, you guys have done like your role play. It's like, okay, it's time to overcome. Think about it. And they get excited and all of their emotion comes through and it kind of overwhelms the client. And my philosophy is when you get an objection, it's not time to fight. Like, it's not like put on your boxing gloves and it's you versus the client. It's time to slow down. What the client usually needs, at least in my industry, is for you to slow down and re-explain the process. Like, let's slow down, let's back up, let's re-explain the entire process to make sure you understand everything that we said we were going to do today, that you already agreed we were going to do here in the beginning. And let's confirm where, misunderstanding or some clarity needs to be, or dig in a little bit to find out what the real objection is. Because most of the time, the first objection is a giant smoke screen, a surface level, and we got to dig a little bit deeper. So let's slow down, let's explain, let's ask some clarifying questions.
I love that, Jamie. That's huge. And then another thing, when people bring up their objections and concerns, there's a framework I use to first resolve and level, basically repeat what they're saying so they understand that you're listening and you hear them, and also to make sure that it is their concern. Because sometimes when you just resolve and you ask it back to them, they'll actually remove the surface level question and be like, no, actually what I was trying to say was this. And then, cool, repeat it again. And then you're peeling the layers off the onion until you get to the core. And then after that, now that you're on the same level, you've understood them, you're working with psychology, you're building rapport, you're saying, hey, I'm listening to you. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the number one thing, is they want to know this guy cares. This guy or girl is listening to me. They're not just here to sell me. And so you got to have that. And then you have the leverage to ace or do something to explain something, which is what you said. Go back to the framework. There's maybe something that you missed. And then, followed up by some sort of close or assumptive, what's next, right? Do you get this with any of your prospects when you explain things very well, or you go through a solid flow through your presentation, that you don't even have to hard close necessarily? Some of your prospects are just saying, okay, so what's next, Jamie?
Most of them, but I would say they never say what's next. I say what's next, and then they follow along. So it's okay, Bob. So, we've got the three different options here, the 300, the 200, and the 100. Hey, I don't even know if I can help you. And I'm not even sure if you guys could qualify, but if you could qualify, which one of those makes the most sense? The middle one. Okay, great. Go do me a favor. Both you guys get up, go grab your driver's license and something with your routing and account number on it, and we'll go ahead and get started. And they're either going to get up and go get it, or we're going to have a conversation about what's holding them back from doing that. But it's very assumptive. Okay, let's go ahead and start an application. It'll take about 5 or 10 minutes. Let me just start confirming information. Let me just confirm the spelling of your name. And I'm like in the application already, before they've said yes or no. So it's like, they're just very like, I'm leading them. All right, you said that one makes sense. The next step is we're in the application. Let's go.
Dude, so what other major concerns are they getting for most reps that don't close a deal? Like what are the other top like get out of jail
I
free
need to
cards
talk
that
to my
they're testing?
spouse or I need to talk to my kids. And I think that we call those a one-legged appointment. And still to this day, find myself going, man, why did you take that one leg? Or you knew the wife wasn't home, but because you think in your ego, you're so good at selling, you're going to sell the husband anyways. Probably the majority of the one-leggers that I have sold canceled because they would rather be in good relationship with their wife than have the $89 a month insurance plan and try to convince her otherwise. They'll probably go back and buy it, in 2 weeks, but they're going to cancel mine because I sold it and they didn't make the decision together. So avoiding a one-legger is a big deal. And then if, we deal a
How,
lot
wait,
with,
on that, how do you avoid the one-leggers?
so if I get onto an appointment and I find out that they're married and the spouse isn't there, I reschedule immediately.
Nice.
And
There you
it's
go.
it's it's painful to do when you're going in home because you've driven to their house for a set appointment.
It's
You spent
painful.
your time and your gas to get there, and you get there and you're like, well, I could probably sell them anyways. Like I should, like I'm
Dude,
good at this. Let's go in there and do it. And then you get all the way to the end, and he gives you to think about it, and it doesn't matter what you say. I don't make decisions without
doesn't.
my wife, and
Yep.
I could definitely twist your arm into doing it, and I have twisted plenty of arms, but they always cancel.
Yeah. Yep. From my experience, that's the case most of the time as well. And even if you have, I've seen some guys posting some clever one-liners that are phenomenal, and they're actually manipulative. Because when you get the problem with that objection is overcoming it is manipulative, right? If somebody
100%.
tells you I need to think and talk to my spouse about it, you're not using any sales one-liner used at that point is manipulation. And so the way you do not manipulate people is by saving your time up front and pulling it out front. Hey, I noticed you got a ring on, or hey, most of my clients are married, or I just want to make sure you're both on here because this is a big deal. Like this, if I can get you guys approved, we might be Facebook friends, and this could be literally a game changer for you guys in your life, and give you guys a lot of peace of mind. And so I want to make sure you're both here for that. And in fact, for what I say actually is part of the process, what they make me do, right? Going back to what we were saying, Jamie, what they make me do is I actually have to meet with both of you guys for this application process. Like I can't even get you approved. Like you say, Nick, I'm ready to go, dude. Because no matter the dude, you ask them like, hey, do you wear the pants? Is a common line, right? And even if they say they do, they'll say they're the decision maker, but then that same person will still say, you know what, I've got to talk to my wife. And dude, I don't know, like it doesn't matter how good of a salesperson you are, even if you do close them, there should be no pride or ego about closing those deals.
Well,
You're
you're going to have the
stupid.
person who's going to go. Do you ask your wife permission to buy her a present?
Yeah,
No. Well,
dude, it's
why
just
would you? Why would you ask her permission to protect her? If a burglar
dude, it's
came
such
into
an
your house
asshole
and
kind of thing.
if the burglar came into your house, are you going to ask permission to protect your wife? Well, why do you have to ask her permission to get a life insurance policy to make sure when you die she's taken care of? And I've seen
Yeah.
that stuff work, but I've also seen it piss off way more people than it
Yeah.
works on.
100%. 100. Can it work? Yes. Can it work without cancels? Absolutely. The majority of the time, though, if you're trying to be a good business person, you can still you'll make more money if you don't do it. You just
Yeah.
have to adapt your system and your sales process and your questions to it, right?
Well, I think again, it comes back to activity. It comes back to activity and leads and schedule and appointments. And do I have enough activity on my schedule? Because if I don't have, 8 appointments today, and I only have 2 because I, decided to mess around on dial day. Our business when we go out in the field, we dial on Mondays for Tuesday, Wednesday. We dial on Thursday for Friday, Saturday. And I know that if I'm out there on a Tuesday with 3 appointments, it's because I messed around on Monday and I didn't start dialing at 8. I waited until 4 p.m. to start, and then I'm
Yep.
booking these crappy appointments because I'm desperate. And then I'm like, well, I only have 3 today, so I might as well sit with just the husband. But when you
Uh,
have 8 appointments or 12 appointments on the
yeah.
day, you go, hey, sir, they require, if your wife's going to be the beneficiary, she has to be here too because you can't take insurance out on somebody else without their knowledge. So I need to make sure she's here. So what time do you get off work tomorrow? And like, you're not afraid to do that, and you're not afraid to leave because in our business, a lot of the times we also get behind schedule. I'm showing up to some people's appointments 30 minutes to an hour late anyways. So I'm like, if I reschedule this appointment that was going to be a think about it anyways, I'm on time for my next appointment. And then I have a better chance of closing this one tomorrow.
Yep. Dude, well, this is something I've recently done this year that's been a game changer. But I think for people running leads and ads and getting inbound leads, this is very important. But I have a go-to SOP for when a prospect or client reschedules or no-shows. Meaning, when that happens, I know the highest performing and the highest yielding activity that is worth my time to be doing in that moment. For you guys in your space, if you have an open time, like let's say you got 8 appointments on your calendar, or what's typical for you?
Typical for me is probably 8 to 10 appointments. I don't want to say that's typical for everybody. Just I'm at a different point in my career, but just because I've got someone coming behind me and dialing behind me to pick up all the crumbs that I didn't get. So typical person, I'd say probably 5 to 6, 7 a day.
Okay, well, let's take the 8. Let's take 8. Okay, and when somebody, let's say you're at your 2 o'clock and it no shows or cancels. What would you advise somebody that's wanting to absolutely crush it, get max results for their time? What should they be doing in that time? Or should that be the time that they just relax, play games on their phone, text, call the wife? What do you recommend?
Pick up the phone and start dialing, as Jordan Belfort would say it. Pick up the phone and start dialing to fill in your gaps for the other days. So if when I was out in the field, virtual is great because it's like I'm already at my desk. What else am I going to do?
Yeah.
But when I was in the
Yep.
field, it was like, should I go get food? Should I go to a parking lot and,
Hmm.
just relax for a little bit? Should I go for a walk? Like, should I watch YouTube on my phone for a little bit since I got no showed? What should I do? And in your guys, it's like, go walk to another door, go knock. Like for us, it was, if I dialed on Monday for Tuesday and Wednesday and I set 12 appointments and I had, 8 today, but one no show me, but my Wednesday was still feeling a little bit light, I'm dialing to try to fill in every single one of those gaps on Wednesday, even if it's from my car. Obviously, if I'm working from home or I'm working from my office, I'm doing the virtual thing. We've got a handful of ways that we could fill in the gap. The easiest way for a new agent is just to go back through your leads and try to fill in your gaps. As you start to do this for a while, you learn about things called live transfers. So like you can pay $100 to $150 for a call center to dial out on your behalf, and then you just press a button and turn them on, and you have inbound life insurance leads of someone who, hey, Nick, I've got Jamie on the other line. He's looking for a life insurance policy. I'm going to put him through. So like there's some things that you can do, but obviously, it takes a little bit of money as well. So you have to earn the right to do some of those things.
Right. So let's say you do have the money, Jamie. Let's say you have 2 appointments cancel, and you're trying to break a record in sales that month or that week. You have 2 of your appointments cancel. What is like step by step? What are you doing next after you find out those cancel?
Yeah. So
Like
I'm either,
to fill your
yeah.
time. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm either going to be turning on my live transfers and trying to fill in those gaps with 1 or 2 appointments, or I'm going to be dialing out on some leads that I know are maybe retired or a little bit older, not working if it's been the middle of the day, and trying to do what we call a one call close. So typically it's I call you, I set the appointment, we get on the appointment, it's a one call, sale at that point. But one call close for us is, hey, Nick, this is Jamie. You filled this out. Okay, great. I was able to get a hold of you. Hey, it'll take 5 or 10 minutes. Go grab a pen. And now it's immediately from the first contact directly into the appointment. And I'm trying to one call
How
close.
old are those leads? Were those old leads like for months
I
or
mean, they,
what?
they could be anything. My philosophy is always call your newest, most expensive leads first. Always. If something brand
Yep.
new just came in, please call them first. Please don't get caught up on the fact that
Absolutely.
you had your leads from 3 weeks ago that you weren't able to get through the whole list the other day, but you had 10 new leads. Call the 10 new leads first, and when you finish those, then go back and finish up with the other ones. But always the newest, most expensive ones first.
I love that, Jamie. I totally agree. They in our industry, when a lead comes in, we try to get on the phones with them within 30 seconds. It's hard, but if you reach out to them within the first 4 minutes, I think the close rate is astronomically higher. And I know that's across any industry. So
Yeah, a lot of our
timing is
industry
huge.
is like you're going, like for instance, like you go in, you log into our company, lead center, and you see a map of the United States, and it's a heat map. Red if there's a lot of leads, yellow if there's some, and green if there's not many. You click on the red area, you go in, and you see there's 50 leads in this county, and you buy them. That lead could have been generated 30 seconds ago, or it could have been generated 2 days ago, depending on what category that it's in. So for us, a lot of times we're buying those leads and we're calling them, we're just waiting till 8 a.m. the next day and then just dialing through a list. So unless you're working with a vendor that's like generating your leads one by one, which some of us are, that's when some of that call them in the first 4 minutes makes a lot of sense. But a lot of our agents, they don't really know when the lead was actually generated, or they're calling a batch of leads, they're brand new, that were $3 a piece, but they're 3 months old. So it doesn't matter if I call them in the next 30 seconds or in the next 3 days, they're still going to be 90 days old. Does that make
I
sense?
love that. Have you done the math on like the average acquisition for a client,
You're talking
like
about the
acquisition cost?
average commission for our agent, or
No, like your customer acquisition cost. Have you done the
oh,
math for your space
yeah,
for you guys?
our brand new internet leads cost $11, pretty much across the board.
Okay.
A Facebook lead, typically, depending on what kind of lead it is, we have things called mortgage protection leads, which is like a higher intent lead, homeowner who wants to pay off their house if they die. Those typically run, from a retail perspective, agents buying those for 30 to 35 a piece, but we have agents who are either own their own lead vendors or generating them for themselves that are doing it for 15 to 20, so they're making a, $10, $15 profit when they're selling them. So that's why there's so much value in becoming a lead vendor, because number one, I spend $8 grand a month on leads for myself. So if I start a
Eight
lead
grand a
vendor,
month on leads. Okay.
yeah. So
Okay.
if I start a lead vendor and I start generating them, I'm buying them at retail. So if I start
Yep.
generating them at cost and I have agents who are purchasing those leads, number one, they're happy because it's a high intent lead. But number two, the hope is that the profit will pay for all my leads so that I
Right.
am pulling
What,
8 grand a month off my balance sheet, but still having the same revenue.
what's your total, like, what's your gross revenue on like in sales commissions from the 8 grand per month on average, would you say?
I mean, typically I'm probably doing 50 to 60 a month. My lead spend varies, because that also is including me purchasing leads for new agents too. So I would probably say I'm
Yeah.
probably doing about 5 on myself, and the other 3 or so is me putting $500 into a new agent here or there.
Okay, nice. So you're getting close to like a 10x return on the leads.
So I would say the average
That's all
agent's
right.
getting about like a 4x. The average agent
Okay.
gets like a 4 to 5x. My first year in the business, I helped. So I did 428,000 the first year I had Hall of Fame. It was my first full year in the business. That wasn't including any overrides from the agency. So the numbers I gave you earlier were including some overrides. So I did 428 in personal sales my first year, and I had like 580 clients. So that meant that my policy per home was like $700 a home on average. My second year, I did 550 in personal sales, and I think I did like, man, maybe 380 clients. So my average policy per client went up. And then this last year, my average policy is close to like 2,500 to 3,000 per home. So to do the same amount of volume, 4 to 500, in a year, I may be doing it on 220 families, as opposed to, the previous years it took me over 500 families to do that.
That's huge. Dude, it's crazy you mentioning a 4 to 5x return and the top guys like you are getting closer to 10x or so on the ad spend. That's amazing. So I was just at Funnel Hacking Live with Russell Brunson in Orlando over the end of September. And for the listeners who don't know, Jamie, I don't know if you know, he's the number one marketer in the world by a long shot. I mean, he's a legend in the making. And he said verbatim, if you're getting a 2x return, you should be dumping all your money into that. That's a phenomenal return. So imagine, dude, people don't have this person. I would assume you run into this a lot in your industry of like, a guy makes 20K a month and only puts like 1 or 2 grand in ads. And you're like, bro, what are you doing? Like, stop throwing your money away. If you were to put 15K, reduce your expenses, put 15,000 into those ads, or heck, even 5, 10,000, right? You got to work your way up. But that's how you build and grow, right? And if you can't handle all the leads, dude, you'll recruit people who can.
I mean, we have agents who they spend a lot on leads. They spend 5 to 10 grand a week. And in personal sales, they're doing 2 million a year in personal sales.
Look at
They're
that.
having some months where they're doing, I think when somebody had their first $100,000 month in life insurance, it was a really big deal. People were like, that's not possible. It can't be done again. And then someone had their first 200 grand month, their first 300 grand month. And then there was a guy who he sold, a big retirement policy that'll probably net him over $500,000 in 1 month. And we were like, that was one client. That's insane. So, to see things like that, it's like you see what's possible. But also like it kind of just becomes like video game numbers at a certain point, and people go like, that's not real. Like that couldn't be real. And they see these recognition leaderboards, and they also become like a little bit numb to it. People who are outside of our industry. But at the end of the day, I also tell people it's a business. Like these are gross commissions. Yes, they did make X amount of deposit, but they have lead costs, they have chargebacks. Some of them have staff and virtual assistants. Some of them have office rent, gasoline, wear and tear on their car. So for me, like when I'm bringing somebody into the business, when I'm recruiting, I've got two videos. One video is sunshine and rainbows, and here's how this career could be amazing for you. And the second video is thunderstorms and rain clouds, and I'm trying to scare you out of getting your insurance license. And here's all the things that can go wrong. Here's person number one who made 200 grand last year, and person number two who made 200 grand last year. This one put 50 grand in the bank, and this one's 50 grand in credit card debt. Here's how this could go wrong for you, and here's how it could go right. So I'm really upfront with people because I have a huge passion behind helping people become a good steward of their commissions. In our business especially, if in any sales, if you stop selling, you stop getting paid. But in my business, if you stop selling, you stop getting paid, and policies cancel. We get paid on what's called an advance. So if Mary spends $83 a month, her annual premium is $1,000 a year. My commission is determined on the annual premium. So if I have a 100% commission level, I made $1,000 in commission on Mary's $83 that she spent. But she's only made her premium one time. So they've advanced me the entire year. So if she cancels within the first 9 months, I'm going to get a negative commission based on what she still owes. So if she still owes $450 in the first year and she cancels, I'm going to wake up and my statement's going to say minus $450. Next time I go sell a $1,000 policy, I'm going to get paid $550 instead of $1,000. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does.
So 20 to 30% of what we write falls off the books. I kind of tell people that if you're going to come here to sell insurance, it better be a career. Because if you're somebody who's going to come here and business is going to fall off the books and it's an unsecured loan, the insurance carrier is going to ask for it back if they cancel. So you either have to sell more insurance or you have to pay it back. So there's pros and cons to our business. I don't necessarily think that that's a con, but it is something that will keep people out of our business, and it will destroy people if they have bad habits.
Yeah, well, dude, and the other thing too is just I'm so big on this, setting expectations. In a lot of companies within sales and leaders within sales struggle with this of setting improper expectations, and it's because we recruit. Say, hey, this is how much we make. This is how much we make. Here's opportunity. Here's this golden goose. Come work with me, and then boom, all the crap. Like they do well, but because expectations were so high, it's like, well, I'm doing crap, right? Or they've got the momentum, the trajectory to do really well. And like if you look at stats, they're actually on par to do 20, 30,000 a month. But then because expectations were too high, they give up and quit. And so I had this when I did pest control. I sold over 900 accounts, which is like, $300,000 over a summer. And, other college dudes, to go out and make several $100,000 at that age in your early 20s is awesome. And dude, every time somebody told me like, if Nick, you did it, I'm going to do it too. The first year I'm like, yeah, definitely. Like I believe in you. Right. And I learned quickly, dude, that was a huge mistake. I was screwing all of them. And it's not that I was better than them. It's just they didn't have the right perspective. In fact, that first year I went out, Jamie, my goal was actually half of what I achieved. But because I got positive momentum from hitting all my stats and goals, I'm like, okay, well, I can do what's next, rather than the other mindset of coming in and, here's the expectation. And if they perform here, it's still really well. Like you're making double, triple what the average person in America makes. But they end up doing a lot worse because of that.
Well, not everyone's like you and me, man. If you look at I'm sure if you look at your leaderboards, or if I looked at mine, 80% of the sales volume comes from 20% of the people.
Yep, it does. Dude, I've built and restructured my solar company around that. And I actively turn people down. And the number one thing is I'm like, dude, like 4 of my guys will outproduce 20. In fact, 2 of us were outproducing 22 reps within this area we're working with. And I'm like, why keep hiring guys? Like it's not worth my time to train them. I don't need them. And that's the philosophy we live by, and it attracts more success, right? And dude, you and I both know, high tide rises all ships, but it also can sink them if it goes too low. And that happens very fast with negativity, and that bottom 80% of people drastically can affect the results of the top 20%. So it's pretty cool. I'm excited to keep implementing this in our own company, but we get very picky with who we hire, dude.
I
So
think you have to be. In my business, if somebody
yeah,
doesn't pay back their negative commissions, then I have to. So for me, I'm
yeah,
telling people exactly what's going to happen. Hey, here's what's going to happen. You can make more
yeah,
money quicker than you've ever made in your entire life. But if you're not serious about this, then it's going to ruin your entire life, because now you're going to have to pay this
yeah,
back, and then I'm going to come after you, and then debt collection, your credit, it's not going to be
yeah.
great. So please don't join if you're not serious and you're going to do that.
All in. Yeah, all in.
And you're still going to
I
have
love that.
people who will join and they'll say yes to all of those things, and you'll still end up in that situation. And I look at
Yeah,
that as cost of doing business. That's the industry
yeah,
that
I
I've
agree.
chosen. That's the cost of business. I get it. I knew that 20 to 30% was going to fall off. I signed up for that. But it's
Yep.
when, yeah. So at the end of the day, I'm not mad about it, but I'm going to make sure I tell you up front so I can
There you
minimize that
go.
as much as possible.
There you go. Dude, look how much of the conversation with selling, recruiting, training, leadership is just communication up front. It's awesome.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Great. There's a correlating theme there. I love that. Dude, I think this has been a great episode for anybody in sales, anybody who owns a small business. I think we've shared a lot of great insights that could apply to anybody, dude. I mean, you and I both know sales is part of every business. I put glass on roof through solar. I've sold pest control, bug juice. I've sold coaching and subscriptions. And you've absolutely crushed it in the life insurance space. And these things apply to anybody, whether you're a dentist, doctor, lawyer, and especially the small solopreneur, right? Anybody having a small business, they have to know these skill sets, or you have to partner with somebody that does and forfeit part of your company to have that ran by somebody who has mastered the game of sales. So
That's right.
I love it. Jamie, thank you, dude. This has been an awesome podcast, dude. Thank you so much.
No problem, man. I'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thanks, bro.